Good evening. On behalf of Reverend Laura Valfragang, our Senior Minister, Reverend Michael Lehman, Associate Minister, officers, lay leaders, and members of First Congregational Church of Los Angeles, it is my pleasure and distinct honor to welcome you to the annual Martin Luther King Jr. Concert and Forum Series. Tonight's concert continues an annual tradition at First Church, which began in 2019. The main vision and thought leadership for these concerts and the important discussions that form action plans that have followed the work comes from our music director, Dr. David Harris. Dr. Harris and members of the MLK Planning Committee have worked hard this year to bring you and your family an exciting evening of music combined with remembrances of the life and words of Dr. King. What promises to be also an exciting and thought-provoking discussion on housing and justice with a panel of experts. Dr. King's legacy is filled with rich opportunities for participation, collaboration, leadership, partnership, cooperation, and the creation of a path toward a way to address the myriad of issues, social, economic, and political, that continue to have a material impact on our lives and the lives of those in our city, state, and nation. At First Congregational Church of Los Angeles, we are answering Dr. King's call for engagement and participation. This call of action started in 2019 with a keynote address from the eminent Reverend William Lawson, Pastor Emeritus of Holman United Methodist Church here in Los Angeles, who was not only a protege of Dr. King, but also his friend and his colleague. Dr. Lawson reminded us that the work yet to be done by us in this struggle for social justice. He enlightened us on the real purpose behind the work of racial justice and social justice in the 60s, 70s, and 80s, and he pointed the way for us to action, participation, and engagement. He also reminded us that Dr. King's dream requires us to continue to work hard for justice, to maintain the battle for justice, and to work together to ensure a better future for all. These concerts and the forum attached to them, the discussions that have become a critical piece of the social justice program here at First Church, are our attempts, our earnest efforts to, in the words of James Baldwin, begin again. We began again to face the stark realities of injustices attached to housing, homelessness, and the availability of shelter. The panel discussions that will occur later on YouTube as part of this program will delve into a wide range of issues, questions, and start again to talk about the ways in which we can rightly address and eradicate the many crushing aspects of housing injustice. We invite you to stay with us for this evening, for each and every part of our program as we continue the legacy of Dr. King and as we begin again to press our way forward in the struggle towards social justice that lies ahead for us. Please join me now in these words of gathering. Please read in the italics. I have a dream that one day every valley shall be exalted.
Every hill and mountain shall be made low.
The rough places will be made plain.
And the crooked places will be made straight.
And the glory of the Lord shall be revealed, and all flesh shall see it together. This is our hope.
With this faith, we will be able to hew out the mountains of despair a stone of hope.
With this faith, we will be able to transform the longing deeds towards our nation into a beautiful sympathy of brotherhood.
With this faith, we will be able to work together, to pray together, to struggle together, to go to jail together, to stand up for freedom together, knowing that we will be free one day.
Please stand now and join us in the singing of the national anthem, National Black Anthem.
God of all creation, we honor the diversity found in this our world. We celebrate the gifts and graces each of us brings as we work together to weave a tapestry of grace and goodness, of justice and peace across our city, our country, and around the world. We give thanks for this joyful, timely celebration, concert, and conversation we share this night. We give thanks for the life and legacy of Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King Jr., and for each gathered in this space and across sacred virtual space. We ask that you might open our eyes and our hearts through every word spoken and through each note played and sung. Ignite our imaginations and inspire our action that we might find our part to play in Dr. King's dream unfolding in this, our time and place. Bless and strengthen so many still longing for justice, dignity, and hope. For those experiencing homelessness especially, longing for safety and peace. We ask, O God, that on this night they and we might be immersed in your justice rolling down like waters and your righteousness like an ever-flowing stream. Holy One, illumine us, knowing you have called us to be the light that will make a lasting difference in our world. Grant us the strength to love, fiercely, urgently, and ceaselessly. In your many holy and gracious names we pray. Amen.
and recognize that there are ties between us, all men and women living on the earth. Ties of hope and love, sister and brother.
Good evening. My name is September Penn. As is the case with most Black women, I wear many hats and I represent many organizations. I'm bringing greetings from your neighbor right across the way at Immanuel Presbyterian Church, where I serve as the music and worship lead. I also recently started serving as the pastoral leadership of Angeles Mesa Presbyterian Church in Windsor Hills, where I'm fulfilling my requirements for ordination. Lastly, I am the CEO and artistic director of The Power of Song, Inc. We educate about civil rights movement, social justice issues through song, theater, and art. Back in 2005, I was introduced to and began working with Dr. Claiborne Carson at Stanford University. Dr. Carson had been commissioned by Coretta Scott King to edit her husband's papers in 1985. His journals, his notebooks, old sermons, sides of newspapers with notes and scribbles all over them. All of these precious documents were turned over to Dr. Carson and his staff. Thus began the King Papers Project, which eventually evolved into the King Institute at Stanford University. From his work in editing Dr. Martin Luther King's papers, Dr. Carson wrote a play titled Passages of Martin Luther King, which literally lifted those private notes off the page and allowed us to see and hear intimate moments between Martin and Coretta, his relationship with his parents, and then some. One of those intimate moments detailed a private complaint where Coretta was disheartened by having to endure the smell of urine in the stairway of their Chicago apartment. Today, we are talking about housing justice in the city of LA. Well, Dr. King and his entire family are quite familiar with the disparities of unfair housing. Sources note that Dr. King had visited Chicago many times prior to the 1965 to build support for the civil rights movement. But it was in January 1966 that he captured national attention when he moved into an apartment on Chicago's West Side to protest ghetto conditions. Proximity. Dr. King knew that he could not just show up for a march from time to time. He could not just go before city officials to argue on behalf of the disadvantaged. He had to experience it. He had to get in proximity to the people he was fighting for. He had to move into the neighborhood and see the rat-infested facilities for himself. So Dr. King, Coretta, and the children moved there to the slums of Chicago to live alongside and experience the struggle firsthand. They embodied neighbor. What does it mean to be a neighbor? What does it mean to be a good neighbor, to see what my neighbor sees, to experience the pain of my sisters and brothers, to smell what they smell, even the urine in the stairway. A well-known quote of Dr. King is, "Those who love peace must learn to organize as effectively as those who love war." Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. said these words on March the 25th, 1967, in a speech he gave after leading 5,000 people down State Street in Chicago to protest the Vietnam War. This certainly speaks to what we are doing today and how we have organized over the last few months in preparation for this occasion. But we must tap some quotes that are not quite as well known as we consider Dr. King's affinity for music, the power of song. Since Dr. King chose to leave a movement of nonviolence, what would be the weapon of choice? They were not picking up arms, so these good old church folks, they took the war tools from the church. They armed themselves with praises and affirmations that would morph into our freedom songs. They simply flipped the lyrics. It was said that as Dr. King traveled to different towns and cities and met the local leaders and the foot soldiers on the ground, he knew that they were ready to truly participate in a nonviolent movement when he heard them singing, when we heard the sounds coming from the rooms. Dr. Martin Luther King first heard "We Shall Overcome" when Pete Seeger played it at the Highlander School in 1957. The civil rights leader was later reported as saying, "There's something about that song that haunts you. We shall overcome. We'll walk hand in hand. We are not afraid. We shall live in peace," and the stanzas go on and on and on. And they were not written at a songwriting table, no. These songs were written in the crucible of the moment, on the front lines of a march, or in the corner of a jail cell. As it called, the stanzas came forth out of their spirit. We shall overcome. We shall overcome. We shall overcome someday. All deep in my heart, I do believe we shall overcome someday. We shall overcome. 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 We shall we shall overcome.
be moved. I am so unsure of my perception. What I thought I knew, I don't seem to. Where is the time so I can get back to what I believe in, back to the old me and God? Please hear my call. I am afraid for me. Love has burned me out. I need your healing. Please, please, please. I am such a fool. How did I get here? Played by all the rules, then they change. I am but a child to your vision, standing in the cold and the rain. Lost here in the dark, I can't see my foot to take a step. What is happening? Oh, this hurts so bad, I can hardly breathe. I just wanna leave. Oh God, please hear my call. I am afraid for me. Love has burned me out. I need your healing. Oh God, please hear my call. I am afraid for me. Love has burned me out. I need your healing. Please, oh please, please, oh God, please hear my call. I am afraid for me. Love has turned me cold. I need your healing. Please,
Tonight, it is our joy to share our offerings with LA Family Housing, whose stated mission is to help people transition out of homelessness and poverty through a continuum of housing, enriched with supportive services. This organization's extraordinary work in Los Angeles focuses on the individual and the family. Each has a unique life experience that defines what type of support is needed. With these needs in mind, LA Family Housing connects participants to the right type of housing for them and surrounds them with services that are proven to foster long-term housing stability. In 2020 alone, LA Family Housing helped an incredible 10,808 persons connect with and retain housing. Their work has become a model for cities across the country. Each dollar of your ticket donation and those you offer now by using the QR code on your screen will ensure this vital work of LA Family Housing continues. Thank you for your generosity and for doing justice with your resources tonight.
We
We who believe in freedom cannot rest. We who believe in freedom cannot rest until it comes. We who believe in freedom cannot rest. We who believe in freedom cannot rest until it comes. Until the killing of black men, black mothers' sons is as important as the killing of white men, white mothers' sons. That which touches me most is that I had a chance to work with people, passing on to others that which was passed on to me. We who believe in freedom cannot rest. We who believe in freedom cannot rest until it comes. To me, young people come first. They have the courage where we failed. And if I can but shed some light as they carry us through the gale, the older I get, the better I know that the secret of my going on is when the reins are in the hands of the young who dare to run against the storm. We who believe in freedom cannot rest. We who believe in freedom cannot rest until it comes. Not needing to clutch for power, not needing the light just to shine on me. I need to be one in the number as we stand against tyranny. Struggling myself don't mean a whole lot. I've come to realize that teaching others to stand up and fight is the only way our struggle survives. We who believe in freedom cannot rest. We who believe in freedom cannot rest until it comes. I'm a woman who speaks in a voice, and I must be heard. Sometimes I can be quite difficult. I'm bound to no man's word. Oh, we who believe in freedom cannot rest. We who believe in freedom cannot rest until it comes.
Two, three. Ride on, King Jesus. No man cannot hinder me. Ride on, King Jesus. Ride on. No man cannot hinder me. No man cannot hinder me. Ride on, King Jesus. No man cannot
I know you will join me wherever you are in applauding and giving thanks for Dr. David Harris, for Laude, for our band here today, for September and Bob, and our esteemed organist, Mr. West. Thank you all so much. On behalf of the MLK Planning team and our entire congregation, I am honored to introduce the panel that we will enjoy tonight. They are among the most important and passionate voices for issues surrounding housing justice in our city. While the goals for what housing justice are might appear simple, how we achieve them is more complex and multifaceted. Tonight, we are invited not only to consider housing from these perspectives, but are also invited to consider how we might participate in creating a more just reality in the lives of all our neighbors. In a moment, our organist will play one more piece, and then this live stream will transition to a Zoom. No need to do anything but to sit tight and watch, and our panel conversation will begin. We give thanks for the time that each took to be with us tonight, the generosity of spirit with which they worked with our team to shape this conversation, and most of all, for the good work they are doing to bring peace with justice to our world.
start going live in 3,
It's preparing to live.
whenever you're ready, basically. When it says live, that's your live.
It says it's setting up for custom stream. Well, somebody, okay, here we go. I see it. I see it. Are we on, David?
Yes.
So I can talk.
Yes.
All right. The world is hearing us. There we are. I see our faces. Hello, everyone. I just ran from the sanctuary to my office to join our esteemed panel. As I'm sure you've all figured out, the reason we're doing this is because of Omicron, and we're trying to keep everybody safe. So pleased that our guests could join us via Zoom. And we are missing 2, if you have been watching the poster closely, who themselves have gotten sick this week. So we will miss Latoya Baldwin-Clark and Jose, who are both so sad they couldn't be here, and send their best wishes. And to get started, I'd just like for each of our panelists, if you will, introduce yourself in whatever order, whoever wants to speak up first, and tell us what your current job title is, and then one sentence that describes the primary ways that you engage with housing justice, however you define that. Cynthia, why don't you begin?
Oh. Go ahead. My name is Cynthia Morris, and I'm a health education and wellness consultant for Herb Bearing Seed Ministries. And I'm also an associate pastor at Bethel AME Church in Monrovia. I engage basic needs coordinators at various colleges and students who are homeless in conversations, and also in seeking to meet their basic needs, such as food, shelter, gas, whatever they need to continue to maintain themselves at the college in good health. And I help to meet their needs, to get them what they need each and every day, to meet their daily needs in that aspect.
Ladies, I'll let you go first.
All right, I'm Lisa Matey. I am the Housing Navigation Director for LA Family Housing. And what I do every day to assist with housing justice is we do whatever we can to eradicate homelessness for families and individuals in SPA 2. We work directly with landlords in my department specifically to partner with them so that we can place individuals in permanent housing.
Nice. My name is Amber Love, and I work for the Covenant House in Los Angeles, California. And what I do is actively in the community. I'm a community partner, which is community involvement coordinator. And so basically we house young people, foster youth between the ages of 18 and 24.
And I'm Bob Ward. I am an attorney here in Los Angeles. You'll see judge by my name because I spent 9 years on the bench. Not currently on the bench. I'm part of the MLK Planning Committee here at First Church and have worked with the Planning Committee on this program. Member of the church in good standing, and just excited to be able to lend a legal voice. Dr. Latoya Baldwin-Clark had planned to be, but as we heard, she's not well. So we wanted to make sure we had some kind of legal perspective as we continue our discussion.
Thank you all so much. And as you listeners can tell, we have an incredibly stacked house of people who have hands-on experience with this topic. So as we get into this, it's great to know that you know way more than we do. So thank you for sharing that and helping bring us in this conversation. When it comes to housing, I don't think I'm alone in saying I'm incredibly frustrated about the way Los Angeles housing is, and I don't know what to do. So we're looking for y'all to give us some seeds of wisdom. And I know from the conversation we had earlier, you all connected immediately. It was really beautiful to listen to the ways you were like, and yes, and yes, and yes. So normally when we think about housing, the housing crisis and housing justice, we think about homelessness, which we will get to. But housing justice is a much bigger topic. I wonder if each of you in your own way could help us share a few minutes about what housing justice? Like, give us the big scope. What all are we talking about?
Housing justice, for me, the way I look at it, is housing first. And what housing first means is regardless of someone's issue, mental health status, addiction, credit score, socioeconomic status, whatever those barriers are, they still deserve to be housed. We have individuals coming out of the criminal justice system. They deserve to be housed. There's nobody that deserves to live on the street that we can walk past and say, oh, well, you deserve to be on the street. It is housing first. Once you are in your home and you are comfortable and you are warm and you have somewhere to clear your mind from whatever things that you're going through, at that point in which you can work on those barriers that have prevented you to maintain or obtain homelessness. So my goal is to house you first, and then we add the mental health professionals. We wrap you with these services that will assist you in being stable in your home and teaching you what you need to be fiscally responsible. But those things typically can't happen when you're laying on the street, when you can't go to the bathroom, when you're dirty, when you're cold. That's really not what you're thinking about is, hey, I really need to get off these drugs. That's usually not it.
And Amber, y'all were talking about, to add to that, you were talking about people living too close on top of each other and challenges of substandard housing, people who are in housing. But can you say more about that?
Well, I don't think that might have been Lisa or Reverend Cynthia, but to piggyback on that, I believe that social injustice in housing is across the board. Everyone deserves housing, from middle class worker to a low income worker. And then when we raise the bar up with rent and things of that nature, it provides the person, the citizen, to work even harder. So now you have people, like we stated, are living in certain apartments where it's like stacked on top of things. And we wonder why COVID is spreading. We wonder why TB is spreading and different things are spreading, because people are working 10 times harder to have somewhat of the American dream that is really non-existing. And it's not necessarily a crab in the barrel, because nobody's trying to reach up. Everybody's really just trying to protect what they have, So if you have a mom and a dad and they're both together and each of them are working 2 jobs to make a rent of $2,000 or even $3,000 in a 1-bedroom with maybe 1 or 2 kids, how are you supposed to be able to discipline that child? How are you supposed to be able to navigate that child's life? And then they kind of show up, as I was saying, to the Covenant House, either foster kids or kids that are like, you know what, I don't want to be disciplined, or however, because mom and dad is not home to do it. And then we rely on the community to do it. And then that's when you get so many different areas of trauma.
Housing justice to me is the assurance that every man, woman, and child has a right to safe, affordable housing. It is a right and it is a necessity. I also feel that irregardless of their sexual orientation, irregardless of their social status, their gender, their workplace, anything, they have that right. And for that right to not be given to them, that they have to think about where their next meal is coming from, think about where they're going to take their next shower, think about heat and warmth, where they're going to get these basic needs from. I believe it is a shame. I believe it is a shame. And for us to sit in our homes with heat, with running water, with these basic things and feel that it is not a right, that we all should be living this way, I think it is a tragedy here, especially in the city of Los Angeles. Again, I believe in what Amber Love has said in terms of the housing situation going too high. It's too high. No one can afford that. I remember when rent used to be $700 for a 1-bedroom apartment. That is now $1,500 or $2,000 for a 1-bedroom apartment. So you can see a family. I have people that have 6 children living in a single bedroom apartment with 6 children. Well, you know, that's considered illegal. But what are they going to do? They can't afford to live anywhere else. So to me, it means being reasonable, and also being able to live, you know, like everyone else lives, in a home. And not a transitional home, in a stable home, permanently.
For me, I think the key is, as indicated earlier, is justice. And you know, the point is that if you don't deal with the housing problem first, every other problem flows from that. Food insecurity, healthcare, childcare, mental health, everything flows from
Absolutely.
having a stable place to live, to raise your children, to feed your children, all the insecurities that relate to all these other things that come in a typical family flows because, you know, if a child doesn't have a safe place to rest, that child is not going to be able to focus in school. Even if the child is hungry, you know, the hunger comes after the fact that the child didn't get any rest the night before school. So I think part of it is that you got to deal with the very core. Where the injustice starts is at the very bottom. You deal with the housing crisis, and you're right, Cynthia, affordability in the city of Los Angeles is just totally out of control. In many cities across this nation, $700 would be considered on the high end. So you're talking about $700, you know, years ago, $700 today in many parts of our country would still be considered very high. So I think you're absolutely right that, you know, these are all things that, you know, you got to start at the bottom and then work your way up.
So I hear in each of you the passion that I feel in myself, and I thank you for so clearly establishing the crisis. And it is a crisis. You know, to hear your words, this is a right and we're failing regularly. Before we get into some practical solutions that we can offer to people, let's spend a moment chewing on why. Why are we failing so badly? And it's certainly not for lack of people like yourself who are doing work on the ground. So I think we can put aside there just aren't enough people doing good stuff. That is something we can talk about in a minute because we can all ramp up our efforts. But whenever I hear this discussion, I hear people say, we just need more housing. We need developers to have more freedom to make more housing. If they'll just make more high-end housing, then the lower high-end housing will get cheaper and then everybody can buy it. I never buy that. It never makes sense to me to give the people who are making money on housing more freedom to make more money on housing. That doesn't seem like a solution. It feels like trickle down. Y'all are talking right now to a fairly affluent community, I would imagine, based on who tends to watch these things. I've heard that the housing problem is a rich people problem, not a poor people problem. The not in my backyard argument, the Prop 13 that continues to reward landowners and gut our communities. I'm sure there are plenty other examples. Where do y'all fall on this? Why are we here? Is it a rich people problem? Is there another issue?
No, I think in certain fields with Lisa and I and Reverend Cynthia is that it boils down sometimes to the mental health issue, the state and the mindset of one individual. If the idea of one being actually successful and maintaining stability can become an issue. Like, wait, I got a home and I have to pay rent and I have to do utilities and I have to work. That might be maybe overwhelming for someone, you know? And the fact of not succeeding and not being able to maintain that can be overwhelming. So I just believe it is more so a mental illness. It can be more so of a mental illness as well as injustice between the rent and how it's, you know, but the stability of one person mindset can really predict their future. I don't know, Lisa, did you want to chime in with that or?
I think that absolutely. I think where we're failing miserably is in multiple areas. First of all, this is a capitalistic society and nobody is willing to tell a business person, i.e. a landlord, you can't charge this for rent. we can't continue to throw money at a problem. We can't continue to give a bunch of incentives and a bunch of money and a bunch of hey, develop this, because what we're essentially doing in the area that I live in is we have tons and tons of apartments, where I'm piggybacking off of your question with the other question, David, where you're squeezing families into 2 and 3 bedroom, or 1 and 2 bedroom, not even 3 bedroom, overpriced apartments. We need to stop treating California as if this is the land of the rich and milk and honey, where everybody's super rich and everybody's famous and everybody's living lavishly, when the majority of the people that live in Southern California are everyday hardworking people with 3, 4, 5 jobs in order to survive. But again, you have that other issue of capitalism, where you can't charge people you can't tell people how much they should be paying, they should be charging someone for rent. You also have an issue where you have people with maybe 3, 4 bedroom property, and they're renting a room to one individual person for $1,500. Well, why on earth would I rent to a family who can only afford $3,200 when I can get in excess of $4,500 to $5,000? So until people really start thinking about how they're contributing to the housing crisis, it really won't end. Many of our individuals have vouchers. Those vouchers come with a certain financial incentive attached. But if you continue to raise the rent and we continue to raise the vouchers, then you also knock out a group of people who can't work every day and flow with the way the rent is rising. I want people to stop thinking about the homeless and people that have and the have-nots, or the middle class. Well, they can't afford it, so that's their fault that they can't afford it. You think about a person that makes $90,000 a year. Every 2 weeks, they're going to bring home roughly $2,500, and that's after the federal, state taxes and any health care that they're taken out of. If their rent is $3,000, and that's on a minimum for someone that has 3 children or more, that means they have to glue together one check, take money from another check. They still have insurance. They still have food to buy. They still have clothing for their children. They still have to put gas in their car, and they have nothing left over for any quality of life. Absolutely. This is not a problem about poor, low income people. You have people making 6 figures that are struggling. We have to change the way we think about what a homeless person looks like or what a have-not looks like. We have to change our way in which we think about how we can help. The landlords are, well, the taxes are rising, and we have, prices that we have to pay for taxes and to maintain it. California has to get real about even the amount of money that they charge people for taxes. We are the richest, one of the richest countries in the nation, and you really have to charge people 10% or this ridiculous amount for property taxes. It's disgusting, but nobody's going to get real with the people that are making the decisions. Sorry, I probably went over my time.
No.
We were all enjoying
time, Lisa. That was great.
Right. It's good. It's factual. It's what's real and what's going on. And now the middle class is not even middle class anymore.
There is no middle class. It's either you have, if you have incentives or assistance, or you're rich, or you are hustling. That's the bottom line.
And that is the class that is being cut out, is the middle class. That is being cut out at this point. But what really has raised concerns for me is that the rapidly growing populations in Los Angeles has had an impact on the housing security, because the populations have grown so rapidly. And I'm talking about not only among Latinos, African Americans, Arabs, just a lot of different people, Asians. They're just growing so rapidly that the housing cannot keep up with the number of populations or the number of people that are now needing housing. And so it becomes a place where, instead of they're talking about communities having talking points in their own quote communities, we can no longer do that. We have to cross lines in all communities, and we need to sit at the table because we're all involved in the need for housing. It's not an Asian problem. It's not a Black problem. It's it's all of us. And what we need to see is where the money is going and who has it, and sit at the table and see if we can pool resources. And that's what we need to do now. And it's like you said, Lisa, it is no longer the have and the have-nots like that. It is, we all have a problem. This is a problem for all of us. It is not just a public health problem. It's not just a social problem. It's a problem across all avenues. And we must sit at the table and we must all speak and take part in it. How do we do that? How do we give up some of our insecurities? How do we give up thinking it'll take away from our materialistic ways or what we're used to? We have to change our thinking and not see people as taking away from what we already have. We have to regroup.
I would follow any of you anywhere. You speak with such clarity and passion. I love it. I wonder,
David, just before we leave this, I know you get ready to move to another topic, but these are all very good points, but keep in mind that legally and historically, this is a country that has a very tarnished history when it comes to housing and justice. One of the reasons that we had September Penn highlight, or she highlighted it herself, the example of Dr. King and his family going to Chicago and moving into the intercity ghetto apartment was to show that, even way back then, people were struggling with affordable housing. And I think is a graphic example of Dr. King wanting to show his, upwardly middle-class family, well-educated middle-class family, that this is how people live. You need to understand that this is the suffering of people on a day-to-day basis in the inner city. And so, Cynthia, you're absolutely right. But how do you get, a representative from LA County to pull in people from Orange County who feels that, oh, no, this is back to Lisa's point, this is a wealthy part of Los Angeles. People live here, are wealthy, they own, $1 million homes. And if you can't afford to live in these communities, then perhaps you shouldn't live here. You should live in Arkansas someplace. There are people who have that mindset because with the rapid growth, they're pushing out the middle class. You're absolutely right. They're pushing out the middle class. A house that typically should be priced for a middle-class family of 2 or 3, now is being sold for millions of dollars. So, where is a middle-class family? Lisa, back to your point, people in 6 figures are struggling. Where are they supposed to be able to find an affordable home to raise their children?
Right.
Judge Ward, I wonder if you would continue and say a little bit more about, you got into Dr. King in Chicago. At Princeton, there is, I'm trying to think of the name of it, but there's a group at Princeton that is studying housing equity across economic and racial lines. And I heard the chair of that department speaking about that people in low-income housing are paying the same amount as people in middle-income housing for a lot less of a product. And that blew my mind, that they're actually, the price is fairly equitable. They just have a lot less money and they get a lot less for it. There's more roaches and rats and the water doesn't work and all that stuff.
Right.
And this is what I'd like you to talk about. The majority of those people are people of color.
Yeah.
Dr. King was pointing at that in Chicago. We still have that problem in Los Angeles.
You have that problem, David, in any large inner city. You have that problem in South Central. You have that problem in Chicago, South Side, West Side. You have that problem in New York, Brownsville, Brooklyn. You have that problem in parts of the Upper West Side of Manhattan. You have that problem, in all across this country. To address the rapid problem with the migration from the South to the North in terms of housings during the Industrial Revolution, they needed houses. And so they built, if you've been to New York and you've been to Brownsville and any of these other areas, you see communities of just that would subsidize housing built by these cities to accommodate the growth and the need for housing. Well, what happened over time is that those places turned into what we now know as ghetto, when Dr. King talked about the ghetto, that's what he talked about, going to this area, which was a city within a city, just, 18, 19, 20-story buildings, 20, 30, 40 buildings in a community. And the majority of the people residing in those places were Black and brown people, generations. When I was in New York on the bench, people came before me. There were grandmothers and great grandmothers and their children who lived in the same apartment building in Brownsville because they got this vicious cycle that was they were unable to get out, to break out. Just one member of the family to be able to break out and buy a two-family house or a duplex or something that would afford the ability of the family to move beyond those circumstances. So you're absolutely right. And historically, this has been a Black and brown problem.
And can you speak a little
that's
to
not to say that there aren't people in West Virginia and in the South and other people that are poor and struggling. We're not going to say that does not happen. But when in the large inner cities, these areas have principally been set up to accommodate Black and brown people. And when it comes to what they charge, who's looking at whether it's fair and equitable? It's not fair and equitable. So you're absolutely right. I mean, you take the same amount of money that someone in those projects are paying, and you move them to an private independent setting, and you find out, wow, this is comparable to what this person is paying on the other side of Brooklyn.
Can I piggyback off of that really quickly, David? What I just wanted to speak to is this. We're having the opposite effect in a way, if you will, in California. You have the generations that are getting priced out of their neighborhoods. We have elderly individuals coming to seek housing with LA Family Housing because they can no longer live in Sherman Oaks or Woodland Hills or Tarzana, where they spent their entire lives. And the answer can't be, well, they need to move to another state because this is their home. This is where their family is. This is, you would rather have pillars of the community move out of their home because of essentially greed. I don't want this to be a conversation where people get the wrong impression where we're asking people to give a handout to a specific group. What we're asking for is fair and equitable housing, and where a person that makes six figures can't even afford to upgrade their small box of an apartment to accommodate space and leg room for their children. So how do you think somebody that's in a low income or lower income could even move up or move on? It's clear that people don't want the homeless camped in their neighborhoods. They don't want to see it, but they don't want to put in the economic work that it needs to take to move them into a place where they can afford, because you don't even want to help the people that you respect. And I mean, those are the people that work every day and work hard, that you feel are worthy of housing. They are struggling as well, because they're not getting a Section 8 voucher or emergency housing voucher. They are just stuck.
That's a very good point, Lisa. And remember, just a legal point here for everyone. When you purchase your home, that's your private property. Those property taxes that you pay are paid to ensure that you have the right to your private property. So in the United States, in terms of property ownership, historically, it's very hard to be able to force anyone to do anything. You have homeowners associations that are formed to protect the community. And a lot of those associations are geared towards making sure that there's a fight against any change when it comes to home ownership in that particular area. So when you're saying, how do you move people conscious? How do you move their thinking? How do you move them mentally to another place? It's very difficult because the very nature of property ownership in this country is a private decision.
I'd like to drill into one last part of the problem and then start talking about solutions. And that is the legal firewalls that over the course of our nation's history have been erected against people of color. That it is harder to purchase property, it's harder to get a loan, it's harder to live in neighborhood, all of the reasons. Any of you, and from your point of expertise, can you speak to the legal ramifications that make it harder for people of color to get housing, period?
Well, the legal ramification that makes it difficult is that we historically do not, the economic gap for our race for people of color, the gap is very large. I mean, we typically don't get paid the amount of money that our white counterparts get. So that takes us out of the game for home ownership, especially here. If I wanted to purchase a condominium that was $740,000 roughly, and 10%, I would have to have at least 100,000 or 140,000, 10 to 20% just to do that. Well, if my social economic status is not to the point where I am making that type of money, then there's no way for me to even purchase the least amount. If I don't have those 3, 4, 5 streams of income because my people were behind when people were making investments and giving out investment tips and getting the Homestead Land Act when they were given land and et cetera, I am historically behind in my thinking and financial I'm drawing a blank here, but learning things financially, I'm behind in my education. I'm at a disadvantage. The race, people have ran 10 miles and I haven't even started the race. So these are things that I don't know how to fix, because this is going to take people not putting down their biases and putting away their privilege and being real about how we ended up in this situation. And it's not because we're bad people or Black people are bad or Black people are dumb. It's none of those reasons, but I can't change or mandate someone's thinking.
It's funny because Martin Luther King himself said it in his last speech that the Negro man is on a lonely island of poverty. And he stated that. And then he also went into a speech to state the fact about the Good Samaritan and how he said that what made the Good Samaritan a Good Samaritan? Was it because the Levite was scared about the Jericho road, or was it because it was intertwining? He said, but the question that he maybe felt that the Levite guy might have said was, what will happen to me? But what made the Good Samaritan so good was because he said, what will happen to them?
Absolutely.
That is the true question. We sit here and we say, okay, what will happen to me? I'm trying to keep mine and not realizing and asking the question, what will happen to them? What would happen to all of us if we all had equal housing? We all, of course, yes, the race between the Negro man and woman is way behind because of a lot of injustice, a lot of discrimination, a lot of lack of knowledge, and the fact that the finish line keeps getting pushed back and keeps getting pushed back. How can we fix that? We can't. It is literally a broken system, But I think every day, if we can start to wake up and ask the question, like Martin Luther King stated, how does this affect me or affect them, not just me, becomes different. And I believe that we are doing that as far as the Black community. We are starting to teach our young people financial literacy. We are trying to teach them about housing and things of that nature is changing, but education would have to change on how we teach economics. These things would literally have to change. And then we have to now have a generation that is like social media lost. So it's kind of like how do we get them back to even care that you need housing and that you need these things to survive,
I think that, Amber, that you're absolutely right, but the struggle continues. And I think if that was part of Dr. King's message, is that, we have to continue the good work. And Lisa's point is, when you have a people that have suffered a long historical discrimination that eliminated access to financial markets, access to generational wealth. And when you had communities of color like Tulsa, that had, independent entrepreneurs and banks and publishers and attorneys and accountants and living within their own peaceful rights, people saw that as a threat. So as opposed to promoting it, they did everything they could to eliminate it. you know, but I have great hope that we are on the right path. First of all, I have to say, just in terms of what I've seen over the last 5 years, in terms of the movement for justice, the movement towards justice, to addressing the issues with regard to injustice, be it social, economic, political, there's great work being done. And I have to say to you ladies, the work, I'm just amazed about the number of women of color that are doing great things. You guys are really leading the way in a powerful way. So, I mean, you don't believe me, just look across the spectrum. I mean, you guys are really leading the way. I was talking to someone about the African-American women coming out of my law school class at Temple last year, you know, outnumbering the African-American men 2 to 1. I mean, just really knocking the ball out of the park. So, and this is Amber, you're right. I mean, in terms of the attachment to media, you know, your child, you can take that electronic device and use it as a tool of learning and engagement for your child, and point them in the right direction. But, you know, we are behind. It's going to take us some time to catch up. I think we are slowly catching up. But you have to remember, we did not start at the same place.
Yeah. I think I see it all the time. You're right, Judge Bob. I see it all the time, especially with our young people at the Covenant House. And it's like, how can we get you to care? How can we get you to care about yourself, about your history, about wanting to be a part of a greater community?
Well,
I think
that's the word, Amber. Reverend Morris, when you came to lunch the other day, we talked a lot about community and efforts. That's the concept that kept coming back was, well, let's start here. A lot of the solutions stemmed from bringing communities together. Can you say more about that, Reverend Morris?
I think in order to start a conversation, we have to look beyond our differences and look at the things that we have in common. Look at things that we share first. Once we do that, then you break the ice. And I think that we have to get rid of thinking that differences are negative. You know, differences can be a valuable asset because they are different. And I think what we have to start thinking about is increasing access to down payment assistance on houses. Where do we go? Where do they get this information? Also increasing access to affordable credit. Where do I get this information? Investments in affordable home ownership. You know, just information, giving information and where we can get these resources so that we can level the playing field for minorities. There's a lot of women, just like Judge Bob has stated, that want to be on the playing field, but they don't know where to get these resources. They don't know where to go. They also pull their resources. I know women in families that there's 5 women, and what they do is they pull some of their resources from their paycheck every 2 weeks, and they put it in a jar, so much of their money. But now they need to know what to do with it. It's not just something having it there. What do we do with it? What type of resources are there where we can pull our resources and put our money into it, invest in it? These are the types of things they can invest in. Affordable renting housing, different things. And so we need to bring these things to the table to people that we feel may not be worthy of it. Maybe they're not ready. They're as only ready as when we give it to them. We have to feed them something. We have to feed them.
I'm curious, Lisa and Amber, kind of riffing off of that. You both are doing on the ground, well, all 3 of you are, doing on the ground work where, and it's my impression from the distance I'm at where y'all are doing a whole lot of legwork and could use a whole lot more support. So, but in each of the 3 of your different communities, what would be helpful? What kind of, if this church and that synagogue and this housing association and this mayor's assistant were to all come together and say, tell us what to do, engage us, give us work, what would you have them do? What would that community connection feel like and look like in a utopia?
One point I want to make before I answer that question is about, it's based on what Reverend Cynthia and Amber were stating, is what work do we have to do in our community as well? And how do we get our youth engaged? And one thing that we have to think about is we have to show them that things are attainable. If it's not attainable for me at my age, there's no way on earth it would look attainable to the youth. That's when they stop caring. That's when people stop caring, when they believe that their work is in vain. When they believe that them working 3 jobs or them doing whatever they're doing is not going to profit them or attain a home or whatever that specific goal is. What if I lived in a utopia? We do have temples and churches that have been phenomenal with LA Family Housing. I won't lie. We have landlords that we work in tandem with that will come to our office and say, okay, bring us all the people you got and we'll interview them. And they're like, okay, you get a house, you get a place, you get a place. We do have people that assist us in that area. However, what we really need is potentially to incentivize a group of people, a population of people, to want to assist this population. Like I said earlier, why on earth would I take a chance on someone that on paper looks horrible? We're a paper society. Oh, you got bad credit. Oh, well, what's your race? I don't even know why anybody would ever need to know why I'm black, if I'm black or not. But those are the disqualifiers. So we look at all of these disqualifiers and we want fair market people to ignore the disqualifiers. Where they're not brainwashed to look at those and ignore them. Those are the standards. Do you have an eviction? Do you have a bankruptcy? Are you black? Or where do you live? So when we start eliminating the barriers and the disqualifiers, that then would help people want to rent to this population. But again, why would they? Why would they take that chance? They're trying to pay their mortgages a lot of times. They're in it to make money. That's their how they feed their family. What can we do to incentivize this group to want to take this chance? What can we do to incentivize this group to help people that, work a job that make, as I stated earlier, 6 figures or not, or make $65,000 a year, to want to rent to somebody with 3 kids, but they can't pay $4,000. What can we do about that? And that is going to be a conversation with landlords, with politicians, with people that make the rules, to give them a reason to want to. Because the way things look right now, with food is high, gas is high, people are looking at profitability. They're not always looking to be a change agent or a nonprofit. They're in it to make a profit.
And I would venture to tell you that it takes years to get policy changes, legislative changes, anything along those lines. And so in terms of incentives, my recommendation, I was part of a group when I was on the bench in Houston. And one of the theories that we had is, as hard as it is, continue to make sure that you present your target population with people who have found a way out. Okay, continue to make sure that they bring forth people that they can identify with, bring forth people that look like them, bring forth examples, if you can find them, of people who've been in their situation and found a way out, to talk about how do you protect your credit? How do you build your credit? How do you, if you've been in a bankruptcy, now work your way back? I mean, these are all tools that are available. And we were able to actually find examples of people that we could bring and sit them in a room, not with 20, but with 5 people at a time. Because the point is, listen, if we could get just 5 at a time to understand the importance of credit the importance, as hard as it is to even save. Cynthia, you talked about putting money in a jar. I mean, as hard it is to try to save money, what is savings all about? How do you start that? To begin to have the conversation with someone who looks like them and continue to be able to keep them engaged. Because I think the work we have to do is the populations that are in front of us every day.
And we have those examples and we use those examples, but we have 61,000 people in Southern California that are experiencing homelessness. And just like COVID, when we were able to pull together miracles, we got people out of the basin, we got people out of Griffith Park. We certainly can move just as fast to incentivize whomever to get people off of the street. I just don't buy the fact that this isn't a new problem.
No,
This was a
Not
problem.
a new problem, but I tell you, it's not a new problem, but trust me, I do not see this as a priority for the city of Los Angeles.
Oh, it is.
I do
Yeah,
not see it as a priority for the state of California. I have, homelessness in and around California is now a 60-year problem. So clearly, you look at the changes that have taken place over the last 10 years in downtown Los Angeles in terms of real estate, that's the priority.
Yep, you are correct.
I just want to piggy off of David's question. If the mayor, if anybody was here, I think that in my demographic with working with young people, it's all about getting them to care. Of course, they care about police brutality because being a hashtag is kind of popular and not popular at the same time. I think it says if you teach a man how to go out and you can give a man a fish, right? And he can eat. But if you teach a man how to fish, he can go out and he can feed a village. And I think when it comes down to like the Habitat Humane and things like this, if these young people know that, wow, I'm building this community, I'm building this neighborhood, I'm building this home, and I'm going to live in this home, I think they would respect the process a whole lot more instead of somebody just handing it to them.
Absolutely.
I think people find so much pleasure in knowing that they worked with their hands, that they built this community. So if you say you got 10 people and out of 10 people, they built that home, they're going to take good care of that community. They're going to know, you know what, I built this community right here in Inglewood with Habitat Humane, and I get to live in this home. Why would I destroy it? Why would I just let anybody else come in here rather than somebody say, hey, we built this for you. Come on in. Well, no, I'm gonna throw it all around and treat it like whatever. So I think for working with this newfound generation, they want to leave a legacy. They want to build something. They don't want it handed to them. And even though my generation is like, look, we worked hard for you to get handed to, they're like, nah, I want to build it. I want to build it. So I think if there could be any amazing project, it would definitely be partnering with Habitat Humane and saying, you know what, this building or this community got destroyed by fire, and we're using you guys, and we're going to rebuild it together, and you're going to dwell here. It's your community.
Absolutely.
And I think that I would love to see that. That would be powerful.
Yeah,
Absolutely,
definitely.
Amber, what you just said, it brought something to my mind. Every time I see a homeless college student or a homeless person, period, I think about why aren't they sitting on that board? Why aren't they sitting on those decision-making things? Why are they here? And then after maybe a year or two later, I see them progress to handing out lunches or handing out things. No, why aren't they sitting on those places there? Now they've advanced a little bit. Now they have a place to eat. Now they have transitional housing, but they're still not where the decisions are made. They're still not at that post. What I see at the post are people who have houses every day, who go home, who have water, who have food, who have abundance of money, who have cash, to burn. That's what I see at the tables. And so you miss seeing those people who are homeless, who know what it's like to be homeless, who know what it's like not to eat, who know what it's like not to have warmth, and you still see them walking around passing out food to others who they once used to sit in their seat. That's not good enough for me. That's not good enough for me. I struggle with that. I struggle with that.
Me too. I for years said, why are we, at least we do politics by regions of groups of people. Why are we not at least having some seats in politics by demographic
Absolutely.
and socioeconomic status? It blows my mind.
Because
Why you have to have a bazillion dollars?
because they don't want that. They don't want that. David, they don't. That's too much like right. Why would they do that? Reverend Cynthia, I would like for people to hear, because I find what you do so fascinating. Could you just break it down exactly what you do, seeing these college kids going to college and home? Could you talk a little bit?
Absolutely. And having gone to college myself and have not endured that, I can't even fathom what they are going through, because I did have a roof over my head. You know, I did have food. And so when I see a young lady that it's her time of the month and she can't even get tampons, that burdens me. When I see a young man saying that he has a job interview tomorrow, but he can't even get a haircut or get a shower, you know, that bothers me. One of the things that a young student told me is that every day they fight to be clean, to sit in the classroom with the other students so they won't smell them. That bothers me. So it's like, what do we need to do? What do people need to hear to pull at their heartstrings? To pull at the heartstrings, to move them, then by the very thing that is creating homelessness, by the very thing, people are not listening. People are not giving of themselves. They want to give you some money and send you on your way. That's not what these students need. What they need is things that are in place, people that are able to make decisions, people that are able to say, our students should have a place to lay their heads. A student should have lighting when they need to study. A student should not have to sleep in their cars. They're trying to be somebody. They're trying to do something. They're trying to be able to make a living, if they ever reach that point. I have a student in third year that is looking for housing at this time, that sleeps in their cars. What we've done sometimes, if we have them to sleep in their cars at the church parking lot, because then we know that they could be safe. And then we've also allowed them to be able to plug in, to be able to get on Wi-Fi so that they could do their homework. You know, there's things that people can do. There's more people that can do these type of things, that can reach out. They need cards so they can get to and from school. How are they going to pass school if they can't even get to school? How are they going to pass a test if they don't have light to study? If their stomach's growling, if they're not warm, if they're and they need medical care, you know, but they can't get it. There's just so many different things. Some of them have grants and they can't find a place to take their grant because they want to raise their rent soon. And they don't want the student taking a place that they cannot raise their rent. So I look at it like this. A home is a place where they can get their basic needs met. A home is a place where they could sit in a chair and do their homework. They can answer calls. They can live the way that we live from day to day. That's what a home gives them. And then they wouldn't need the handouts. They wouldn't need all the other things if they had the basic thing in life: shelter, shelter, running water, things of that nature. But they're still at the basics, and they're students. But yet they can afford to pay for their books because they have a grant or they have a loan or they have something, but they can't afford to live, normally.
And these are people that are clearly trying to get ahead in life and
trying to get ahead, trying to do
by
the right thing.
all measures, they're working hard at it.
Yes.
I wonder, listening to
but then
all
they
of
get
you.
stopped for sleeping in their cars.
Exactly,
and I have a
right,
student that got a $200 ticket for parking in the wrong place. And we were trying to get that removed. So we need people in the legal system to help them when they get things like this, because they said, I can't even afford to eat. How am I going to afford this?
$200 ticket. I heard a statistic that something like 40% of Americans are a $500 unexpected cost away from real trouble. You know, the car tires blow out, or
Absolutely.
so, you know, something comes through, they get sick, they have to go to the hospital, whatever, and $500, and then they actually could have real economic trouble, get kicked out of their apartment, etc. That's a staggering number of people. And you know, I'm not ashamed to admit, as a lifetime artist, that there have been some months in my life where I had to call my parents and say, rent's not going to happen this month, could you help me out? And they were able to, because my parents are stable. That's not true for 40% of Americans. That group of people, not only will they be in real trouble when that unexpected thing comes up, but they don't have anybody to reach out to. And Cynthia, as I hear you talk, I hear you are, it feels like a one-woman band of being the person that they can reach out to. And I wonder, how is that a place that maybe we can expand on? That you're saying, how do we pull at people's heartstrings? Is that something? Could I be the person who gets the call and say, you know, so and so needs $300? Sure, I got it this month, or whatever. I mean, and could there be a whole network of those people?
Yeah,
I don't know that that's. Go ahead.
Yeah, some partnerships for, you know, I mean, it's just tragic, because these are young people trying to get an education. The education will move them forward in their lives and make a really big difference in where they end up in society. So, you know, when you say, listen, I got a ticket, I can't even afford to go to court, you know, why don't, you know, why don't we have a list of some legal sources available to this person? So when this happens, we can say, I got you, you know, go to class. I'll make that appearance in court. Mm-hmm. Don't worry about that $200 ticket, you know?
Absolutely. Absolutely.
And that takes organizing. Somebody's got to pick up that mantle. And I've heard you say, Cynthia, that you work with a lot of different organizations to help them out. And yet it's hard just to get the 3 churches on your street corner to get together and talk about it.
Everyone does their own thing. Mm-hmm. Everyone does what is right in their own eyes, type of thing. But they're trying to meet the same need. Yeah. You know, exactly.
And we're back to the frustration we started with. I feel like I have more information.
The way forward.
Yeah, and we're almost at the end of our time together. I have felt inspired hearing you, and again, informed. I feel like I know more after tonight, and I have more to think about and ponder on, and to help stir the communities that I'm a part of to shape their energies toward. So I really am grateful to all of you for helping me personally. As we kind of move to the end, I'd love to hear each of you say something. You know, if somebody walked up to you and said, what can I do today? I want to help. Well, you know, one thought about how you would guide them, and it can be very specific or it can be big picture. As you're thinking about that answer, I'm just going to say to our viewers, thank you for being here tonight. This is the 4th annual Fulfilling the Dream concert. As Judge Ward mentioned at the beginning of the evening, it was going to be much bigger. Omicron made it much smaller, but I feel like it's no less valuable. I am deeply moved by the people who are here tonight, and we will do this again next year if we can, in the room with the hundreds of people and all the singers, and continue to be motivated to action. That's the point of this evening, is what can we do in our communities this year to begin to address anew these things that we know are crises in our midst. So the question to all of you as our closing thought, what would you say to somebody if they asked you, what can we do today?
I would say take a chance on somebody. If you are a landlord, if you own a business, if you are in a position to assist and someone comes to your door and they need assistance and they don't check all the boxes, take a chance on them. And it's just as simple as that. Stop looking at the reports and the box and look at human beings. Stop looking at whatever color or socioeconomic status or who's deserving, and take a chance on somebody. That's all we can ask.
Right. And I would say, like what Martin Luther King would say, instead of asking the man who was down and saying, what will happen to me? Just say, what will happen to them? And really ask that question, okay, yeah, you're in your home and you're cozy and you're comfortable. I applaud you, because I don't know how hard you work to be in your home and to be cozy, whether it's a 1-bedroom, 2-bedroom, 3-bedroom. But every day I get, I applaud that, because it's hard to maintain that. So I don't want to down anybody who worked hard and continue to work hard to have a stability for themselves and their family. But I would ask every day that I get up and I go, well, God, help me to ask the question, what will happen to them? What would happen to them if I don't show up being joyful? If I don't show up being encouraging? If I don't show up with a smile on my face, what will happen? Because at the end of the day, I'm working with a demographic that long for family. They long for a family. They long to be wanted and accepted. They are lost and abandoned. So, in my case, volunteer, help,
Absolutely.
listen,
Absolutely.
not everybody necessarily wants the answer, or not everybody wants advice, but they just want you to listen.
Absolutely.
And that is a human problem.
Yes.
That is
yes.
a human answer. So I would ask every day you get up in the morning, say, now what happened to me? What would happen to them? Because them is you. Them is you, because we're human. Yeah.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
Cynthia, I'll go after you.
And I would say, come out of the fog, come out of the bubble. If not me, then who? If not now, then when? I would say it is all of our problems. It's not their problem. It's us. It's we. And if you're not part of the solution, then you are still part of the problem. And go across lines. Don't look at race. Don't look at color. Don't look at opportunities. See it as an investment. I work with students who they can be invested in. They're trying. They're doing things. They're out there. They could be out in the streets doing all other things, but they're not. They're trying to get an education. They're trying to make people proud of them. They're trying to do the work. And so what I would say is invest in them. See what the need is. Don't be afraid to ask. And what we need is resources, human resources, material resources, people who will serve, people will do what needs to be done. And if they have the appropriate resources, if they have the appropriate networks, that's all they need. They will do the rest. They're not looking for a handout. They're looking for a hand up. That's all they're looking for. And that's all I'm asking for. That's what I would say today. Be a part of the solution.
Love all of it, especially Lisa's point about taking a chance and volunteering from Amber and Cynthia, absolutely. Taking a stab here kind of as a member of the MLK Planning Committee and kind of substitute for Reverend Michael and Reverend Laura. One of the things that we have been trying to do at First Church, and my conversation with David, which is, as he indicated, has gone on for over 4 years, is to, part of fulfilling Dr. King's dream is to make sure that as a house of faith, a community of believers in Jesus Christ, that we are providing a platform for our members, our partners that associate with us and our community to see the church as a place where they can get engaged. So what we're trying to do, and what we've been trying to do with the forum part of the concert, is to make sure that people know where to go, Cynthia, like you're saying, these opportunities, know where to go, Lisa, when you say take a chance. I want to take a chance on this. How do I start that? How do I start the process of that? Amber, how do I mentor someone at Covenant House who's looking for someone to talk to? How do we start that? And we already have, just a couple of weeks ago, I saw the big sign at Pilgrim School that we're partnering with Covenant House in terms of your clothing program. I'm so happy to see that. So we're already in partnership with you guys. And what we're looking to do with our ongoing series is to continue to make sure that we stay in contact with you, continue to make sure that we can provide a platform for our members to be able to plug into these things that you're asking for. So David, I'm sure that's where you were thinking when you asked that question, because we've been talking about not just an annual concert, but to make sure that as we work with Reverend Michael on his social justice program, that it's an active, vibrant, ongoing program, not something that conveniently takes place every January, but that we work this program through the 12 months so that you can look at us as a true partner and someone that you can really rely on to help you out. So glad to hear all that. So that's my contribution, David. So we can mold it further with the committee.
We want to be your resources. Thank you for everyone for being here tonight. Again, I'm so inspired by the work you do. I'm inspired to be here with you, and look forward to our relationship deepening. And I feel very full. I need to go process it all a little more.
I'm so grateful that I'm even here and I was invited. Thank you so much for having me. I really appreciate that. Even what I'm always impressed with is the fact that people want to hear. They could be anywhere in the world, but they're here trying to learn and see what they can. And I'm just so grateful. Thank you so much.
Well, with that, we will sign off and see you on the ground in our own ways. Thank you, everyone, for being here tonight. And definitely come next January, we'll do this concert again.
We'll be here.
Yes.